we'll do the next part of what I would do if I was in charge of Halo. I'll talk about the movement. The movement now. I didn't really go over that much earlier, but I don't like most people, which is evident through the population. I don't like what Halo has become as far as movement goes. I don't like sprint. I think it's been really detrimental to Halo since it came out. And then Halo 5 just went completely off the deep end, adding all kinds of ridiculous stuff. I mean, at least we don't have jetpack anymore, thank God, but thrust and what happens when you sprint, thrust, slide, jump, like that ridiculous horizontal movement buff. All just everything. Stabilize. And I don't hate stabilize by itself, but like the sum of everything together just makes the game ridiculous, in my opinion, and difficult to the barrier of entry is so high. When at my last duty station back in what year did Halo came out? In 2015, so like early 2016, I will never forget. I had like 3 friends that year in my squad that I tried to bring into Halo 5. That I tried to teach the game. And this is coming from somebody that's been a Halo fan. I played my first game of Halo in 2002. Like, I had been playing Halo for 14 years at that point. Ready and willing to teach somebody how to play, and like I couldn't get them there with Halo 5. It was too ridiculous, man. Like all the movement options and then what they did to zooming, like aiming, taking it off right stick and putting it on LT by default, and then making it look like ADS but not act like ADS. Was just like super confusing to my friends. Like they were aiming down sights because it looked like Call of Duty and controlled like Call of Duty on kills like they would in Call of Duty. But you know, everyone knows in Halo, like you don't zoom in unless they're far enough away that you don't have red reticle. Like you don't zoom in on people that are close to you. But if it looks like ADS and it's on the same button as ADS, can you really blame somebody coming from Call of Duty for zooming in on kills that are right next to them? Like that had to have just been extremely frustrating, and so they had to break that habit. And then at the same time, they're trying to learn, you know, when to shoot, when to grenade, when to melee, and juggle all these different movement abilities. And so they'll get first shot on a guy, and then have to contend with that dude's thrust. He thrusts and starts shooting back, and it was too much for any beginner to begin playing Halo coming from a simpler shooter like COD or Destiny or something. I mean, I don't blame them one bit for giving up on the game. The skill floor, the barrier to entry is just ridiculously high. And so, but that's not to say I want Halo to be an easy game. It's always been a hard game, but it's not supposed to be hard right at the beginning. It's not supposed to be hard to figure out like how to play at a basic level. That's always been, or at least in the first 3 games, that was one of the series' strong points. It's like you kind of get your feet under you pretty quick because it's very simple to grasp the concept of everything. And it's only once you start to play people that are a little bit better than you that you start to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. But Halo 5, it's not like that. You just get thrown in the deep end before you know how to swim. And I felt really bad for those guys. So I guess that's just a really long way of saying I want classic movement to come back. I don't want sprint. I don't want all this goofy shit like thrust and clamber and all this stuff. And some of it, like if you isolate it out, some of it is okay and can stay. Like stabilize is only stupid when you're pairing it with like bum jumps and clambering up to ridiculous ledges and everything, and it makes map design impossible. But stabilize just by itself is a cool idea, especially if it's not bound to the sprint button. Like you don't have to hit a full button combo to do it. You know how it's tied to zooming in Halo 5, and I use manual stabilize, so I have to hit 2 buttons to do it. like, stabilize by itself would be cool. I think it's a good idea. The first time I saw somebody survive a rocket with a really well-timed stabilize, I was like, oh my god, that was pretty sweet. It's kind of like a vertical strafe, you know? I like it. And then, obviously, you know, what it's intended to be used for, the holding angles, like, getting the... Anytime you stabilize with a snipe, and you get that hovering headshot, you know, that's a good feeling. I like what it adds. It's just when it's part of everything else, you know, the sum is just ridiculous. So I mean, if you take, like, Halo 2's movement, and you just put stabilize into it, you do not bind it to zooming in. You can just do it without zooming as its own button. Take the button you would use for frickin' sprint and let that be the stabilize button. You know, I think that'd be fine. That'd be fun. Clamber sucks. It makes map design much harder. I don't like how forgiving it is. You should be able to miss jumps. The one thing I think Clamber could be cool for is if map designers want to, they could create ledges, they could create places on the map that you can only get to via Clamber, and, like, only have certain ledges in the map be clamberable. Like, I don't know if anybody here's played Far Cry, like Far Cry 4 or 5. The ledges in that game that the developer intends for you to be able to climb onto, they visually indicate with, like, a tarp or, like, climbing gear dangling over the ledge, and that, after a while, you get used to it, and the player knows, okay, I can clamber up this ledge. Halo 5 should have something similar to that, but only in certain parts of the map, like the high risk, high reward places on the map. Like, think P3 on midship, for example. I'm not saying you should have to clamber up to P3 on midship, but that's kind of what I'm talking about. Those premium vantage points that should be very dangerous to get to. And I would make the clamber animation at least twice as long of an animation as it is now. That way it's actually risky to do and not cheesable. Like, you know, my favorite example of cheese and clamber on Halo 5 is, like, on Truth, when you're at top of the carbine lift and nades start coming in at you, and you can repeatedly clamber the same ledge over and over again at almost no risk. I think that's absolutely asinine. I feel like if you get caught in a clamber animation, it should be extremely punishing. And at the moment, it's not. It's just such a crutch for bad movement at its best, and at its worst, it makes the maps extremely exploitable and creates paths that the developer didn't intend for. It's really hard for a map maker to account for every single jump that's possibly clamberable. And I think that's easily fixed by just making only the ledges that the map maker chooses able to be clambered. I got the idea. If anybody's played Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, there's certain routes on the map that are only accessible via co-op jump, where the game's played 2-on-2, and the spy team, like, they could team up and kind of throw their partner up into, like, a really high ventilation duct, for example. And it's high risk, high reward. Like, it's a great route, but it requires both of you to be there in order for one guy to take it. And it takes a while to execute, too. It takes several seconds. Both spies are super vulnerable. You know, if a merc comes around at the right time, I mean, he can get a double kill with a good grenade. Halo should have that kind of thing. I think that would actually make the game better, to be honest. But just leave it up to the map maker on where he wants to put that, instead of having to design the entire freaking map around that stupid mechanic. You know, it's one of those things where it could be good, or just right now it's not. Thrust, spawning with it sucks. Spawning with it is just, it's awful. If they could make it like an equipment that you could pick up on the map, and it had limited uses, like if I could pick up thrust off the map, it had 3 uses, and everybody, you could tell that I had it by looking at me, then I think that'd be okay. That'd be forgivable, because I would know, as somebody who's shooting at somebody that has thrust, I would know they have it. I would know to anticipate it, and it wouldn't just be this omnipresent annoyance that it is now, where I open fire on a guy and I know he's going to thrust at some point before I kill him, and I have to try to anticipate that and still kill him anyways. Like, that's so annoying to me in Halo 5. I hate having to account for that. But as a piece of equipment, I think it could be okay. Jetpack, you definitely shouldn't be able to spawn with it. That much should be obvious to everyone. As a piece of equipment with limited use, I think it could be okay. I would prefer to see it as, if anybody's played Unreal Tournament, there's a pickup you can get called jump boots. That's how I would like to see it. You get 3 uses, and if you double jump in the air, like jump up and then you hit jump again on your way up or at the peak of your jump, you get like a huge upward thrust, and you get to do that 3 times. I think that's the best way to do it. But like the Reach jetpack could also be okay, as long as it had limited fuel. I would say 3 full ascents worth of fuel, I think, would be appropriate. Let's see, what else as far as movement goes. Slide by itself is pretty benign. Doesn't really... It can be cool sometimes. It's only really stupid when it's paired with thrust, and you know that you get that huge boost like you can do in Halo 5, the thrust sliding. But because it's always been tied to sprint, I don't want sprint in Halo, period. Not as a pickup, not as anything. I hate it, and just get it out of the damn game. And if slide is a casualty of that, then so be it. There might be a way to implement it. If I've kind of tossed around the idea with other forum users before of having the base movement speed ramp up 5 or 10%, so that you kind of get the effect of sprint a little bit, but you're still always able to shoot. And then maybe once you reach your maximum speed, you're fully ramped up, maybe then holding in crouch becomes a slide instead of a crouch that you can pull out of by just pulling backwards on the left stick. I think that'd be okay. Might feel kind of funny the first time people do it without sprinting, but I don't think that would hurt anything. What else we got? Stabilize, clamber, thrust, slide. Spartan charge, get it out. I hate it. Everybody hates it. As far as a momentum melee goes, I don't mind the idea of a melee doing more damage after you've reached max speed moving forward. That's how Halo 1 was. That's how Halo 2 was. So I don't necessarily mind that. I do think there should be different damage values based on how much momentum you have in the melee game. I think falling melees should be worth the most, but moving forward should be worth more than standing still or moving backwards, in my opinion. That rewards aggression. So I think you could take the idea of Spartan Charge and just implement it a lot better. The whole notion of the lunge that it gives you, and the insanely generous magnetism, and the knockback, and the amount of damage it does, all of that was bad. I wouldn't keep any of that. Especially because, like, you could hit somebody with a Spartan Charge and then hit them with, like, 1 assault rifle bullet afterwards, and you knock them back and screw up their aim. It just made getting hit by it so frustrating. I don't think melees should do knockback at all. I think that's just kind of annoying. But yeah, I think crouch jumping should come back and be an important part of Halo again. The idea of a co-op jump and like clamber only ledges, I think there's room for that in Halo. I think the map maker should maybe create some routes that are only accessible via co-op jump or a grenade jump. I think grenade jumping should be should be brought back and made prevalent. Have routes that are intended for grenade jumping, or like a co-op boost jump, and then like have a tutorial in the game that like shows people how to boost jump with a partner. And then on the maps, just like have like a subtle way to indicate to players like that this is the intention of this route. You know, this window, this path is only accessible if you do this, and just have all of those routes across all those maps have something in common visually to let the player know, oh, that's a co-op route, or that's a grenade jump route. You know, I think there's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory was really onto something with those co-op routes, and I think there's room for that in Halo, and it could be a lot of fun as long as there's risk and reward involved. I think like a premium pathway or a premium vantage point is something that could be really awesome in Halo maps. But yeah, that is how I feel about movement. I'm trying to think of any movement tech between Reach and 4 and 5 that I didn't address. But yeah, I just want classic movement. Oh yeah, there's one thing, a new thing. So like I said, I'd be okay with like a new version of Clamber. Stabilize can stick around as long as it's mapped to different buttons. But and then some of the other things could be okay if they're equipment. But for the most part, I want classic movement. But I would be okay with a wall kick. I think it would be a fun addition to Halo, and it's not that intrusive. It's not annoying. You would always know. It'd be obvious, you know, when a player might do it because they have to jump at a wall before they can do it first. And I think that'd be cool. It would make certain routes might necessitate it. It'd be fun to bust out in the middle of a fight. And then map makers could make like chimney jumps where repeated, you know, back-to-back wall kicks, and you could ascend like and do a chimney jump like that. I think there's potential there, and it'd be fun. Other games have done it, you know, Unreal Tournament's done it, and I think it could work well in Halo without, you know, whoring out the game like some of these other abilities have done. So yeah, that's how I feel about Halo. I think it could be, you know, I think classic movement should be the baseline. And then just be really careful about what you add after that. There's room to add new things, but my God, we have to do it in a more intelligent way than we've been doing. Anyways, hard way out.